All right, so my name is Dan Munoz. I met several of you that are in this webinar already, and I will be presenting the scheduler functionality in Business Objects 4. So let me go ahead and proceed. All right, why schedule? Okay, you may notice there's an old picture of an ITIL-based service delivery diagram that I like to show quite a bit with my customers. It provides you with a lot of information on, what main processes are available or are being handled within IT service management, and within each one of these processes you can see the different types of information that is relevant. They're very important for managing the processes. So one of the reasons why scheduling is because if you take a look at these different processes, you can see, for more particularly change management, there's a lot of information that can be pulled from the service management, service manager database that is very relevant to being able to manage change management, for example. Similar thing with problem management or incident management. So in order to deliver this information in a timely manner and more effectively, more efficiently, that's what we would use scheduling for. This is just one reason why to schedule, is to help manage the different processes you have in your environment. Others could be maybe functionality related. Maybe you need to schedule a report to export to another environment in which that export will be utilized to manage incidents or changes or what have you. So there's many different reasons, but the primary reason that I have personally from my experience is to be able to support the different processes within your service management environment. Let's take a look at some examples. So as I'm going through the functionalities of scheduling, you can start gaining an idea, insight, and what is possible with scheduling. What can I do to improve the efficiency of providing reports to my reporting user community? What can I do to get people more excited about the information that can be pulled from Service Manager? Because from my experience, once somebody receives one report, once you schedule it, further reports follow up from that, and the customer is happy. They have more information in order to better manage the responsibilities, whatever processes that they may be managing, or their responsibilities for managing a group of people or services or what have you. So let's take a closer look at what kind of scheduled reports can be set up, for example, for changes. Like for change in the change schedule, you have a forward schedule of changes to provide you with insights of what are the upcoming changes within a specific time range. It could be really important for people that are trying to manage projects, for example, to see what changes are going to be in store that may impact the projects. You can have change board reports every week or twice a week. You would need a report to review all the changes that are happening within the environment, so you can schedule specific changes for different services that are being managed by maybe one or multiple change boards. So now they can identify upcoming changes, make sure all the risks are assessed and the necessary information is communicated for all the people that are going to be affected or that are going to be doing any type of change work, for example. Finally, next is a change review. So let's say that all the changes have completed or some of them failed. You'd like to review those as well to see what the impact is of those changes, how it affects your responsibilities, how it affects the services primarily within your environments. Finally, one that I've seen here and there are a good example are change approvals. All changes have to be approved generally, or majority of them. They require an approval, and a lot of times they're not approved in a timely manner. So change manager can go in there and start identifying all the changes that need approval prior to a board meeting. So as you can see, just from changes alone, there's quite a few different reports that can be scheduled that could really aid in managing the process. And this is something to keep in mind whenever you're doing anything with reports, with building reports and distribution reports, etc. As who are the people that are going to be receiving these reports, and what do they need it for, and how can you automate it for them so they can have the information that they want. Okay. All All right, let's get into business object scheduling. Basically, for many of you who have already scheduled some reports, there's 3 steps in scheduling a report in business objects. First of all, you need to select the source documents, and that's with Business Objects 4. That's done through the BI Launchpad. All right, so I'll go over how you can find the documents and what controls you need to be able to set that schedule up for that particular document. Then you need to determine the triggers for when you want this schedule to execute for that source document that you selected. There's a possibility of using the user-defined functionality, which is basically what most customers use, and that's selecting a specific time range, predefined time range, or recurrence rate within the business object scheduling components. You can schedule it based on custom calendars. So within business objects, you can create some custom calendars that are related to your business, for example. So you can work around holidays, work around outage dates or something like that, and set it up for an entire year or 2 years or what have you. So we'll go over that as well. You can set up triggers based on events. Events could be a file that appears in a shared folder in a local directory, which will trigger a report to execute. So we'll go over those. And finally, output format and distribution. So what type of formats are available for output when scheduling in business objects, and how do you distribute them? All right. Let me go into business objects now. So let's click on the Launchpad. Okay. So this is a Business Objects 4 Launchpad. So it looks a little bit different from the previous version, so they provide you with a lot of different panes with different information here. But what we're interested in is just basically the list of documents from our repository. So if I click on Documents, underneath the public folders, you can see here all the different folders that have been set up within my demo environment here. And I'm going to go directly into the Service Manager reports. Okay, so when you're selecting a document, you can either select from public folders or even your own personal favorite folder. So as long as it's a web intelligence document located anywhere within the repository, you can go ahead and select it for scheduling. So there's 2 ways you can select an object to be scheduled. You can either go through the File menu under More Actions and select Schedule, or you can right-click the report itself and select Schedule. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and select Schedule, and I'll go through each one of these different options you have for setting up a schedule. First of all, instance title. Okay, so by default, it'll provide the name of the report within the instance title. Now, I've seen customers that have literally hundreds of different instances scheduled, and it becomes difficult to understand what these different instances are for. So it might be a good idea, a good practice to come up with a naming convention. For example, if this is going to be a change report for the cab, you can put in change cab, for example. So now when you're managing all the different instances, it'll be easier to identify what that report is for. Okay, so recurrence. Now this is when you determine how often or when you want to run a particular report. So by default, you have all these different options available at your disposal. So we have now, which basically initiates the report as soon as you click on schedule. The report will run and be distributed to the groups that you have selected. Okay. Run once. You can determine when to run this report once only based on start date and time that you select in the bottom over here. Okay, so if I want to make this run for a particular day, maybe on Friday at 9 a.m. for some reason, we need this report, we can set it to run only once at that time. Okay. Hourly. Now, I guess if you really need to keep track of some information within in the Service Manager database. You can set something to run hourly for a particular period of time. Maybe there's something critical going on, who knows. But anyway, the way that this works is you select how many hours, the frequency of how many hours you want to make this report execute. So every hour, every 2 hours, every 3 hours, etc., in addition to minutes as well, maybe every 3 hours and 20 minutes. And it'll begin at the time that you specify over here. So the first run time will be at, well, let's say 9:20 p.m. on 10/11/2013. Okay. If you want to let it run on a daily basis, select the number of days that you want it to run for. At this point, it's selected. 1 is selected by default, and that means it'll run every day at 9:20 p.m. You can have it run every other day, for example, based on the start time. So if every 2 days, it's going to run at 9:20 p.m. in the evening. Now weekly, it gives you more options of selecting which day of the week do you want the report to run. So I can select it to run on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on those days I want it to run at maybe 10 a.m. in the morning, for example. So once you schedule, it's going to do this first execution at 10 a.m. on, well, it's already Wednesday today, so maybe Thursday. Okay. Monthly, this does it by the monthly interval, similar to days. So you just select how many months you want it to be executed for, like every month, every 2 months, every 3 months, etc. Okay. Nth day of the month. A little bit more interesting. So every month, maybe you want to start on the 3rd day of the month for some reason whatsoever. Maybe that's how you manage certain things. So you can select it to run on the 3rd day of the month. First day of the month. Okay, so obviously it's pretty self-explanatory. That'll execute every first day of each month. And let's see, the last day of the month, that'll execute the last day of each month. Now, this is the one that's a bit more complicated. X day of the nth week of the month. So with this option, you can select either 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th day. Or, I'm sorry, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th week. And for that week, what day do you want it to be executed? So every month it'll be executed maybe on the 2nd week on the Wednesday. All right. Now finally, you have an option to use a custom calendar. Okay, if I select calendar, okay, I only have one calendar in there. I created a test calendar. So as you can see in this calendar, let me maximize my screen here. I've already pre-selected specific dates in which the report will be executed. All right, so they're all highlighted in green. So you can create as many calendars as you want, and that's done through the central management server. You can log in there and create a different calendar. So now the advantage of using this calendar is that you can align your scheduling to your business calendar or any other custom calendars you want the reporting to follow. If you want to do it based on financial quarters, you can select the beginning of each financial quarter, for example, within your new calendar. So let's go ahead and create one real quick before I go on to the next step. So it's relatively easy. So if I go into the Central Management Console, okay, so I've logged in already. I can go into Calendars. Okay, I hope this one didn't time out either. Okay, you can see there's a Westbury calendar that I created. So in order to create a new calendar, you just click on the button, Create New Calendar. Give it a name. So maybe we want to create a specific project calendar. So I'll go ahead and create that. And added it to my list of calendars. Now I can add dates to it. So in order to add dates to this calendar, just right-click the calendar, select Dates, and it'll open up the calendar. And now in here, you can see in each month I can just click on a day, and I'll highlight it as the specific day in which I want my report to run. Okay. And you can display this view by quarterly, monthly, or you can do it recurring by day of the month or day of the week. Let's just create this basic one right now. So if I go back in this project calendar, and if I want to modify the dates, I can just go ahead and right-click it again, select dates. You can see they're highlighted in green now. If I click it again, it'll indicate that I want that removed from my run day, and whatever other ones that I click, it'll be in light blue. That'll be a new run day for my report. Okay, let's take a look at by day of the month. If I go by day of the month, I can indicate this custom calendar to, generate the report for each specific day of each month. So every month it's going to run on the 2nd, 17th, and 13th, for example. Or you can do it by week. So if you want a custom calendar to show you, like, what weeks do I want this to run for, based on first, second, third, fourth, last week of the month, I can do that as well. All right, let me cancel out of that. So now I have a new calendar there that I've added that I can use for when I'm scheduling reports. All right, let me go back to the schedule that I was building. All right, so you know what, I'm going to go ahead and select the Westbury calendar as the trigger for setting this report to run. Okay. All right, the next option that you need to select, we've done instance title recurrence, is prompts. Now if a report has prompts added to it, like how many months to go back or what assignment group you want this report to refresh for, date ranges, you go ahead and complete those prompts here, because you cannot refresh a report unless you have all the prompts completed within that report. So this particular report, the prompt is probably not the best example, because it's for a particular date period, and we probably something with assignment group or priority or what have you is more significant. But I'll just keep it like this just for this example. All right. So we set up the source for the scheduling. We set up the recurrence, completed the prompts. Now we get to, what output format do you want this report to be generated in? Okay, so we have 4 different outputs available. Web Intelligence is basically the document type that Business Objects uses. So you can have it refresh the Web Intelligence document, and the only way you can view that document is through the InfoView client or the Rich client. Okay. You can refresh it as an Excel document. So many of you have already seen how the Excel format is for the report. So generally, it'll convert it to an Excel document, and each one of the different tabs in your report will become a separate tab within that Excel document. Okay, Adobe Acrobat, this is probably the most widely used one because it's a smaller format. It's easily opened from basically any system. It's a standardized format, and it has a nice little table of contents that will allow you to navigate through the report easily. So, and finally, for those of you that want things in comma separated value for any reason whatsoever, you can do that as well, and that could be used for maybe importing into other systems, for example. And you can configure the different formats that you want it to be generated in. Okay, so let's choose Adobe Acrobat. Now, caching. When this report refreshes, you can have it cached within the server in Excel format, HTML, Adobe Acrobat. So that can be viewed within the folder system. You can see the different formats that have been cached on any scheduled reports. Okay. Events. Right, so that was formats and caching. Now events. This is an interesting one. Events allows you to run a report, execute a report based on any other events. Events could be another report completing or a specific file existing on the server, for example. So let's go with that first one. events, basing a report on when to run it based on an event that's defined. So what are events, first of all? Let me go into the CMC where we can, or Central Management Server, where we can open up events so you can better clearly understand what they're used for. So within business objects, you have all these different sorts of events, monitoring events, custom events. Those are basically programmed business objects level events that can be created. So it requires business object programming. Crystal reports, we're not interested in that because we're working with web intelligence. Now system events are the ones that we can use for scheduling reports. You can see two different events that are added into this environment: ETL load complete event and report one schedule run executed event. So we're going to start with this one event. Okay, so basically what this event is, let me open it up, let's go to general properties. Well, it's a test event that I created that can be used when you're scheduling a report. You can indicate that you want this event to be selected, to be executed when you're scheduling a report. So what that will do is that you can keep track of that event from another report that you're scheduling and see if that event has been executed. If the event was executed, you can kick off your report. I think it's easier if I can show you how that actually works. First of all, let's create a new event here. So under System Events, I'm going to create a new event, and we're going to use a schedule event, okay, because this is going to be based on business object scheduling. I'll call it Test Event. All right. So you want this event to be executed. Let's do it based on success or failure. You can have events specific, set on failure only. So if a report doesn't complete, this event will kick off. You can have it based on whether or not a report was successful. You can have this event kick off. And it's just basically a marker that you can use as an indicator when you're scheduling other events. So let's just use success or failure. So if I click OK, I have a new test event here that I can use for scheduling reports to indicate, well, whether a report's completed or not. So let me go back into the info view launchpad here. Okay, so I'm scheduling this report. Maybe I want it based on an event. Okay, so if I go to System Events, when this, well, let's kick off an event for this report, in other words, not based on another event. So here are my available events. Over here are the ones that you just saw within the Central Management Console that were available. We have the ETL load complete, schedule one, report one, schedule run executed, and there's the test event one. Let's use the one that I just created. So what will happen is when this report runs, it's going to kick this event, and it's going to kick off this event, test event one. Oh. I'm sorry, I got a little backwards. So available schedule events, events to trigger on completion. So when this report completes, all right, I want it to trigger this event. Okay. So now this is for events to wait for. So you want a dependency on another event. So if you want to wait, if you set up another schedule, you want to wait for this event to be triggered, that's where you would add that to the top section over here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and schedule this report just to set it up. I know we didn't set up the destinations yet, but I want to show what these events are quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I can create another scheduled report for another document here. So let me go ahead and schedule that. Let's go straight to the events. All right. Okay, now events to wait for. Let's go to System Events. All right. So what will happen now is this report will kick off only after this event is activated. That was part of the other schedule that I set up. Okay. So that means we have a dependency here now. This report will only kick off when that previous report kicks off the event. And then this in turn will run. And you can change you can create a chain of events that'll kick off one or multiple reports this way based on this dependency. So I can create another scheduled event that will kick off when that test event 1 is added to the events to wait for. And in turn, I can have this event kick off another event. So when this report completes, whether it be successful or failed, because I didn't have, I chose failed or successful in the options, this will kick off another event that another report could be tracking. So this is a good way of managing when you want your reports to refresh. Maybe you're concerned about the age of the data in there, for example, or maybe trying to keep the reports running in a manner that's incremental or sequential, so you don't have too many reports running at the same time. Or maybe you don't want it to run all these different reports if the first report fails. That way you can fix the problem before you put a big load on the system. So there's many different scenarios in which you can use this type of dependency, the events, when you're scheduling reports. All right. There's one other final type of event that you can create. It's an event based on ETL load complete, for example. It's based on a file system, or a file appearing within the server itself. So if I select file, I can define a file path on the application server that it will check for. So on that application server, if a file appears, it's going to kick off the event, and that event can in turn execute a scheduled report. And a good example of that is the ETL load completed. So a lot of times you want data that's the most recent, or you want to make sure that the data that you have is based on when the ETL load is completed. And the ETL load may fail, or it may take longer than normal, so it may overlap, but you want to make sure that you want to see a report with the most recent data, so you can do it based on a file system. So now what this event will look for is the existence of a particular file on the share in the server. It could be a share in the server, or it could be on the server itself. So in this case, what I did is I built in a folder here called BO events, and in here, when a new file appears with a name that you specify, for example, it'll kick off the event, and in turn will kick off the report to be run. All right, so how do you set one up to do an ETL complete event? Well, when we're scheduling our ETL loads, you can use a batch file. In that batch file, you can have it generate a text file within this particular folder. So when it does complete, it's going to generate this text file within this folder, which the event is tracking. So the event pulls this folder ever so often, and when it does see that file, it's going to kick off the report to execute. And it'll also delete this file from the folder. So it'll, again, wait for the next time this file appears again, and then in turn restart the running of the report. Okay. All right, let me get back to the scheduling of the report. I think we only have couple last things here. Scheduling group. Now the scheduling group is only used when you have more than one job server running scheduled reports. It could be in a clustered environment, enterprise type environment. In this case, we generally usually only have one, but if you have multiple servers available, you can specify where you want to execute that scheduled report. So a lot of times it's good to execute it. For example, if you have multiple file repositories, it's good to execute the report in the region, in the location that file is located. So you select the server group that is in that same location as the report itself. That's one example. Okay, but normally we only have one job server set up, so it's We don't normally change anything there, but in any event you need to, the option is there for you. Now, destinations, the final thing that we want to go over. So after you've scheduled the report, you need to determine how you want to distribute the report. Okay, here are your options. You can do it either in the Business Objects inbox, so you can have it sent to inbox within the Business Objects repository. You select either a group of people in the groups or individual users. Okay, so if you want to distribute it in the user's inbox or a group of users inbox, you can specify the specific name that you want. With additional information from the report, like the date and time it was generated. So you can put in, let's say, the report name, user full name, and like here's the title, and maybe date and time this was executed, for example. You can send it as a copy of the report, which starts using up quite a bit of space, or maybe just a shortcut to the report. Okay. Another destination, probably the most widely used one, is the email. Okay, and when you're doing it through email, you can have the option of keeping an instance in the history. So every time this report is scheduled to run, it's going to keep a copy of the report within the file repository. So they could build up in time. So you can have start using up a lot of your file store if you decide to keep the history. So a lot of times you don't keep the history. Maybe if you want to do some particular type of reporting for maybe trending, seeing how things have changed through time, that may be the case for keeping the history. Okay. Now, use the default settings within the application adaptive job server within Business Objects. You can predefine email destinations, and you can select to use that predefined one. Okay. Or in this case, we're doing it manually. Oops. So you can select, who's this from? And who's it going to, etc., etc. And as you can see, within each one of these, you have this. You can add a placeholder, like for the subject, for example. You can add the title of the report automatically, maybe the owner of the report, etc. Same thing with the messages. So you can add basic information regarding the report. So you can create some sort of template that is generated every time you schedule the report. Okay, so we want this report added as an attachment, for example, if it's in the PDF format. And for that attachment, again, you can specify the specific name for that report. Okay, then when you click Schedule, it's going to go ahead and save that scheduled report within the repository. And if you want to view any of the scheduled reports from the Launchpad, basically you just need to take a look at the report that you want to see if there's any kind of history behind it. Okay, so I right-click the report, select the history. You can see that this report has refreshed twice successfully already and has a recurring scheduled report. So I have 2 instances of the report that I can view, and here's the schedule for that report. So if I want to, let's go to more actions, reschedule the report over here. Say I want to change the schedule. I can just go ahead and select reschedule, change the parameters, and save it. Okay, but you can see the different instances of the report and view the report itself. So these are the saving an instance or cached copy of the report within the server. All right, so one last thing I want to go over is how you manage these reports in the CMS. So I'm going straight to our Central Management Console. So if you go into the Central Management Console, go to Instance Manager. In there, you can query what instances are available for all the different objects in there, and you can, filter your query based on the folder that it's contained in, the owner of the report, and the status of the report. So these are all the pending reports, scheduled reports that are pending to run. Okay. And I think that's it with scheduling. So I know I probably ran a little bit longer than I wanted to because there's quite a bit of information, but I think everybody should have a pretty good idea of how reports are scheduled. So now we can go into the Q&A session. If run once, what's the purpose of having an end date time? Well, if you run it once, you may have the issue that it doesn't execute properly, so it'll try rerunning again. So if you put an end date time there, it'll just stop the run from occurring. So that's basically what I know from experience that's there for. Can end users create their own calendar? Well, you need to get into this Central Management Console in order to do that, and they'll have to have specific rights to manage calendars in there. So basically from the Launchpad, they cannot create their own calendars. So it would have to be done through the Central Management Console, and you have to be some sort of administrator in order to do that. Question about reports that are retained, the history of the reports, right? And if the reports can be used to actually show, well, let's see, could saved reports be used in a new report to actually show that trending? Unfortunately not. So when reports are saved, they're going to be in whatever format that you saved them in. In this case, we did it in a PDF format. So the most that you'll have is just the different reports with the different outputs that you're viewing in PDF. So trending is a whole nother matter that can be discussed in another topic, another day. So how can trending be done with reporting? How can you merge all that information together? I think that's basically what dashboards can be used for. Okay. But if you want a kind of a trending picture, if you have a specific report, you can open up several reports and kind of gather what the status of things were at the different time intervals. You have other customers that export into an Excel format and actually take that Excel data from the Excel and kind of merge it together into some sort of trending document, which is a lot of extra effort. And there's much better ways of being able to do trending information that can be discussed in maybe a later session. How reoccurrence time and event work with each other? Okay, good question. You can set up a reoccurrence and you can set up events. So events using an event gives it some dependency. So it may be the case that without that event kicking off, what it's looking for, the recurrence won't execute. So I'll have to verify that question now, but I'll have to verify that answer. But that's my take on it is. If you're going to be using some sort of recurrence pattern in an event, now you can have it some dependency there. So you may have recurrence, but if the data is not there, for example, ETL didn't load, that recurrence would have no significance at all with regards to the data in the report. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and good luck.